Okay, and the first big topic we're going to focus on this week, of course, is the US men's national team and World Cup qualifying. I think the main emotion, lads, is relief after they got 2 wins from their 3 games this window. We're going to talk bigger picture. Do we think they're still going to qualify? How's it looking as we enter the midway point of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying? But I want to say, Andy Edwards, got to start with you. You called this in our preview of this window. You said they're going to win the home games and they're going to lose at Panama. So fair play to you, mate. That was incredible. And can you tell us what your lottery numbers are this week as well, maybe? But firstly, what did you make of the whole window? Because it was a bit of a Jekyll-and-Hyde window for this US men's national team. But overall, probably what we expected, right? Points tally-wise and where they're at right now.
Just an absolute roller coaster is what it felt like for 7 days. Because you say it felt like relief. I can think back to a couple points during the 7-day window when I felt excitement, when I felt real positivity about it, and there was only about a day period, not even a full day, 12 hours or so after the game down in Panama, where I felt like there was the potential for this to at some point maybe get away from them just a little bit. But what I really liked about it was that it presented another challenge for this young team, a team that's not been through the rigors that is World Cup qualifying, has not been through that process before, and is still learning. And I think the most important thing we have to remember is, aside from qualifying for the World Cup, the number one thing you want from World Cup qualification is to be a better team at the end of it than you were at the start of it. And I think that's already true for this group because they have faced adversity, real adversity on the international level for the first times in their careers, and they've responded to it well twice now. And so they've proven that they are resilient. They can bounce back. They can go home. They can get the results that they need. We're learning a lot about this team. I think every time they take the field, and the fact that they're doing it 3 games in 7 days, there's going to be the forced rotation that's going to have to be built in because players are coming from their clubs. They're going right back to their clubs. There's a lot of factors at play right now, and it really feels like Gregg Berhalter has about 20 bowling pins up in the air that he's trying to keep going at all times. So many factors in the world of soccer right now, and he's kind of just managing it just day by day, minute by minute, it feels like. And you can disagree with some of the decisions, and I'm not saying he's been perfect, but there's a lot on his plate right now, and he's got them in a position almost halfway through. It's looking really good.
Nick, do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I don't think there's anything that Andy said that is incorrect. Let me start there. And I'm not even just trying to be polite, but there's a larger issue at stake for me. I start to think about this, and I've mentioned this a number of times. I feel like the expectations for this side are not just to qualify for the World Cup. And obviously that's the first step, and no one's saying they want them to go 0-3 and bomb out in Qatar. But what I look at them as I want to feel like this is a team that can go into any World Cup group and be looked at as a team that can get out of it, right? Like Ghana, Germany, Portugal a few years ago. We forget how difficult that was, and they did come out of that at a World Cup. I want to feel that way now. And so I feel like this summer we came out with Gregg Berhalter's men, 2 different groups, winning 2 different tournaments. The second one didn't look so great, but at the same time, it was with a second team, arguably. And for me, I just feel like I kind of went back to where I was before the Nations League during these first 2 windows. It doesn't mean I don't believe that Berhalter can get it done. It doesn't mean I don't think they will. I think they will fail to qualify, because I think they will. But we look at this next window coming up in November as one we're going to have to sit with for a few months. And that window is Mexico and Jamaica. And it's just 2 games. It's just 2 games, and they're 2 really important games. Jamaica away is tough. Jamaica finally picked up a win. Mexico anywhere is difficult, a measuring stick. And you think they're going to be ready for this after losing 2 trophies to the United States? So I feel like we're still in measuring stick territory with Berhalter, which I didn't think we were anymore. And that's kind of a weird feeling for me.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. We've kind of gone back maybe 6 months in the process. I think there's some of the question marks that came up with the rotation, the heavy rotation, right, away at Panama, which did not work out at all. You could say it probably did because he targeted the Costa Rica game to win that one. But
that's weird. It's really weird.
And it still seems to me the big lesson is that actually Gregg Berhalter is very inexperienced. This is his first cycle as a manager in World Cup qualifying. You kind of saw that. He's still figuring it out, I think, still figuring out how to manage his team. And some of the stats coming out, I mean, the team that started against Costa Rica was the USA's youngest ever team. So we have to remember that. They're learning.
And I would say it was one of the best U.S. men's national team performances I've ever seen, from minute 2 to minute 90. Like, the first minute was obviously not brilliant. It was pretty poor. But from that point, the way that they control, it wasn't just that they dominated the game. I look at controlling the game almost as being more important. And maybe this is like a Pep Guardiola thing.
I was going to say.
But if you can control the game with the possession the way that they did, that will inherently lead to dominance in the game. And that's what we saw against Costa Rica on Wednesday night. It was completely dominant and in control from the U.S. outside of the goal they conceded after 60 seconds. So I look at that performance with the young lineup and say that Berhalter has his team, the first choice players at least, right where he wants that group to be at this point. And the rotation down in Panama, I think he's getting a lot of flack for not so big of an issue, because you have to, when you're playing the 3 games in 7 days, you have to rotate these players around. And you can say, well, do part of it here, do part of it there. But if that costs you 2 points in Panama and it costs you 2 more points against Costa Rica in the 3rd game, then you've only got 2 points from the 2 games. We came away with 3 because we went all in on the game against Costa Rica. You can get to the World Cup if you win your home games and do almost nothing away from home. And nothing I've seen from this team has made me think that anybody, even Mexico, and I know what happened in the first home game, but anybody at this point, now that they are to this level, and they have really come together and answered some of these challenges, I don't think anybody can come into the U.S. and take points off of this team the way that they're playing right now. And so that is a position of confidence and just strength that I think that the U.S. has not had for maybe ever in my lifetime.
Wow, you're very positive, and I didn't really expect that, because yes, they're second in the table, but like Nick said earlier, I think November is crucial now with Mexico, and then Jamaica looked a lot better in this window, and they didn't have Antonio or Leon Bailey either. So they've got their 2 attackers who will probably be lining up against the USA in Kingston next month. So that's going to be tough. I'm kind of reserving my judgment about Berhalter and this team until after the next World Cup qualifying games in November, because I do feel like it's still make or break. I still feel like we should be further along. Yes, there's been a lot of injuries. Gio Reyna's been missing. Christian Pulisic's been missing. There's been a lot of lineup changes and choices that have been made. I just still think that against the Costa Rica team that is nowhere near as good as it was previously, yes, it was a good performance, but it's what I expected. And I don't know if my expectation levels are too high. Maybe they are. But with this talent of player and level of player the US has, I expect them to be up there with Mexico to win the group. I don't expect them to be battling for 4th or 3rd, which, Canada have shown a lot. I said Jamaica resurgent. Panama, even though they had a bad result, could stick around as well. So I'm still reserving my judgment a little bit. It was a good result against Costa Rica. Good result. I still think there are a few issues within the game. A bit lucky with some of the VAR decisions and the fact that the ball fouled to veteran Brian Ruiz on the break and start the second half, and he was the last guy that Costa Rica wanted that chance to fall to. So a few things obviously in each game, but overall much more positive than it was during the middle of the cycle of this window, when obviously the Panama defeat happened and US men's national team Twitter was melting down minute by minute and ready to fire Berhalter on the spot. So, Nick, who proved their importance in this window from a playing perspective? Which players stood tall for the USA?
Well, I'm going to start with maybe an unpopular one for a lot of people out there, but I thought Walker Zimmerman really established himself as look, we were worried because John Brooks hasn't been that great, and Zimmerman looked not unlike Brooks when Brooks is at maybe 8 out of 10. I like Zimmerman a lot. Yunus Musa last night, I didn't think it's funny, player ratings wise, I didn't give him like a super high score, but he showed me a lot when he was on the right side. And I asked Sergiño Dest about this in the post game. I said, what directions does Gregg Berhalter give you when you find out your right side is going to be you, Yunus Musa, and Timothy Weah? Because that is attack stuff. And he basically said, Berhalter wants me to get forward as often as possible. And yes, I have to defend, but my job is to get forward as often as possible. And he said that a few times. And I think that whole side impressed me against Costa Rica. But I think I'm going to maybe hop Andy's train here, but I know I'm getting the point he wants to. There is no one who came out of this window as big as Tyler Adams. There's just nothing like him. And I think for him to be as young as he is and doing what he's doing, one thing that we haven't really mentioned is Berhalter is like applauding reporters when they mention how young his team is. And I'm like, you choose the players. Like, they're young because you're choosing them. I'm not saying that they're not the best group you could put out there, but like George Bello at left back in Panama for his first World Cup qualifying start is 19 years old. And that's your choice. You could put a 24-year-old out there. I'm make that point not to make fun of Berhalter, but to say that Tyler Adams is still very young and he looks like he's Claudio Reyna at times. Like, I'm just so impressed and amazing the journey we've seen from him, from Red Bulls to being a star there, to what he's become for a couple of managers. And don't sleep on that. A couple of managers at Leipzig.
And he's captain of the US national team 2 of these games. I really think he's shown. We asked for him to step up, him and McKennie in midfield, and they showed their leadership without Pulisic, without Reyna. And Andy, before we talk about Tyler Adams more, I know you probably have something to add there. For me, I was looking at it and the age-old debate, right? MLS against Europe. 9 of the starting 11 yesterday were from European teams and based in Europe. It's kind of showing that the quality, when it comes down to it, is all these young players in Europe, and they need to be handed the reins. Next month, they're just going to have to play both games, and it's easier to do that. But it wouldn't surprise me going forward in January and March for those qualifiers, those 3-game windows, if they just went with those guys again and say, you know what, that's our best chance of making the World Cup. Do you agree with that? And give Tyler Adams some more love because he deserves it.
Yeah, obviously the players coming back from injury are going to factor into that decision. But I'm looking at it here. I will say 3 of those 9 came from MLS clubs and got their start there, developed here in the U.S. and then went off to Europe. And so I think having a nice mix of those, like that's obviously the formula for success for American players is to develop locally here at a very young age, like Tyler Adams. I think that's the key part for him is what he was barely 19 when he left Red Bulls and went off to Germany. So he was very young and inexperienced, but he always had a maturity about his game. And I think that's what we're starting to see for the U.S. because it's no longer about, well, Tyler Adams is athletic enough to make this play, or Tyler Adams, is technically good enough to make this play. Tyler Adams is in the right spot on the right blade of grass every second of the game that he's on the field for the U.S. men's national team. And that's great because he kind of has to be. He's put into that single pivot there at the base of midfield, not given a lot of defensive help, but he doesn't need it. He can cover the ground that he needs to. He can read every single play, step into those passing lanes. I think that's what we're seeing from him now is he is becoming more of a preventative type player in central midfield versus somebody who's reactionary and making spectacular plays. He makes the difficult things look pretty easy now. And so the fact that he's captain, the fact that he is one of the vocal leaders of this team, the fact that he is one of the example setting leaders of this team, I feel so good about where the U.S. men's national team is for the next X number of years, however long he's in the program, because he's already the most intelligent. He's already the smartest. He's already just the most instinctive player that I think that we've ever had in the national team. He is that good, and he's only going to get better as he gets into his prime years. And I will go back to one little thing. I feel like I'm doing public defense of Gregg Berhalter here today. I'm a little bit shocked that I have to do that. But you guys mentioned the fact like the team is so young and we have higher expectations. This is exactly what I expected from a bunch of 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds the first time into World Cup qualifying. I did not expect it to be perfect. I did not have the expectation that we would be further along. My thought this cycle, now we can talk 4 years from now, a year out from the World Cup, we want them to be dominant. We want them to go into the World Cup ready to try to win it maybe in 2026. But right now, I just want them to be the best they can be when we get to next fall and winter for that tournament so that they can then take that next step in the process. It's just a process. I don't know if I'm tempering my expectations, protecting myself, what it is, but it really is just step by step with this team. And I think that's making me enjoy the ride with them so much more as we're seeing them grow every single game, every half that they play, really.
Well, look, and the risks are paying off in some ways. It's not about youth for me. Last night, Chris Richards being in there. It's just there's things that seem very, very questionable, right? For your first World Cup qualifying start to be in that position. If you were going to rotate so heavy, why not do that in Panama, right? And is there not an older guy, and we know there is, who can maybe slot in there? The George Belham, these are not bad players. These are players I think are going to be part of the setup for some time. But I also think, where are the spots that these things are happening? Where are we changing? What are the things we're doing? And I just am not sure that it isn't too much confidence and that he isn't just getting a couple breaks along the way. And I don't think he's bad. I just want to feel like he's very good. I also wonder, and this is something maybe probably for an entirely different show, how far away are we from trying a false nine when you when you're going to put Pulisic back in and Reyna back in? And look, Jordan Morris is going to be back pretty soon. He may be back for the Sounders in the playoffs. Those are three guys that I would have expected to feature heavily. So I think you're right about the bowling pins in the air. And I just think he won't have to pick as many risky decisions because he's going to have hopefully everybody in the fold.
That's right. And for next month in November, two of the toughest games, you'd have to say. Mexico, obviously, are always tough home and away. And then Jamaica away is up there with Costa Rica away as the tougher games that you're going to have in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. That feels like crunch time to me. That feels like after that window, we can definitively say, yes, the US is going to make the World Cup, or hang on a minute, the other teams have caught up. Because there is a scenario there. If, say, the US loses both of those games, Jamaica's gained ground, Canada has overtaken them, and the scramble will be on in early 2022 to qualify. But Nick brought it up there. With Pulisic and Giovanni Reyna hopefully back for that game, Andy, how do you fit those guys into the team? They have to start, right? They're the two best playmakers for the USA, so surely they have to start.
I don't know. I really don't know. And I guess you can say, well, put your money where your mouth is, and I can say I was this pleased with what we saw this month in the 3 games or the 2 games, I guess, and say, okay, well, back that up, go with that group again. I think I would. If the game was tomorrow, obviously, we'll see what the recovery and just the reintegration of Pulisic and Reyna is back into their club teams. I think that might determine if Pulisic can't get regular games for Chelsea, and we know it's going to be a struggle, he might be on the bench. If Reyna can't get right back, listen, 25, 30 minutes of Pulisic coming off the bench to change that game, I think is the smart play. I think you can take all the cliches and you can say, well, you have to start your best team against your biggest opponent. I think that's the best way to manage that game at this given time. And I know people will hear that and just hear, don't start Pulisic versus Mexico. I just think that if the objective is to get the result that you need, that's probably the best way to go about it. But we have options now. We have options in the attacking areas, and we have multiple attacking players who are in pretty good form at the same time. We've not mentioned Brendan Aronson yet. Brendan Aronson is my favorite U.S. men's national team player, not named Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams is number 1, I think, for everybody. But Aronson, the rapid maturity and growth we're seeing from him is absolutely incredible. He's the best attacking player that we have right now, and it's not close.
Wow, I can't wait to the comment section about that Pulisic comment, to be honest, Andy. But okay, so we're 1 game away from the halfway point. Quick fire question. Right now, if you had to say, and you do because I'm asking you, Nick, does the US men's national team qualify for the World Cup?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I'll hedge because not that I think they won't make it. I'll hedge in the sense that, in my opinion, they should always make it. They should always make it. Think about what it took for them to miss last time. Yeah. They've mostly avoided those pitfalls already. So yeah, they'll make it.
Andy?
Yes, they will. Would you like the point total at the end as well?
Ooh,
23.
That's a good one.
I got the exact same points total. I said this morning. Yeah, I went through it. Okay, so
22. Price is right.
All right, higher or lower? Okay, so yeah, I'm with you as well. I think if they would have lost to Costa Rica or even a tie, there would have been more. The murmurs would have been building, negativity. But one result doesn't make a qualifying schedule. But I think the pressure would have been on Berhalter. I think it's been eased now. I think they're going to see it through. I just don't see where they're going to lose these games that is going to knock them out of the top 3. At worst case scenario, they're going to finish 4th. Worst case is something drastically goes wrong and Jamaica and Canada go on an absolute tear, which they can do with the players they have, the individuals potentially. But Yeah, USA is going to the World Cup. Book your tickets for Qatar.
Don't jinx us. Don't jinx us.
No, I said it. Producer Gene can bookmark this and share this later on. But okay, World Cup qualifying is in the books. Loved it this month. Have to mention Germany and Denmark. They booked their tickets. They're joining Qatar in the World Cup. So around the world now, nations are either qualifying on the cusp, or there's a few big nations in Europe that are struggling a little bit to get there. So it's going to be interesting. And at Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com, we'll keep you updated with all the latest World Cup qualifying news, schedules, tables, how to watch. It's going to be interesting, lads. We talked a lot about the USA there, but this conversation is going on in pretty much every other nation around the world. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see it all unfold in the coming months.